There are some stories on Wall Street that just sound like they're straight out of a movie. Imagine a hedge fund, this kind of secret black box that just prints money. No matter what's happening, the dot-com bubble bursts, the 2008 financial crisis hits, it just keeps on winning. Well, this isn't fiction. It's the true story of a firm called Renaissance Technologies. And the guy who created it, he wasn't a banker or a trader. He was a mathematician. So how on earth did he pull it off? Let's get into it.
The whole story really starts with this one number that, well, it just doesn't seem real. 66%. And that wasn't a one-time thing. That was the average annual gross return for Jim Simons' main fund, the Medallion Fund. He did this every single year for 30 years, from 1988 to 2018. It is, without a doubt, the greatest money-making machine in the history of finance.
But that 66% is just a number until you put it into perspective. Take a look at this. The S&P 500, which is basically the report card for the entire US market, gets you around 10% a year. Pretty good. Then you've got the legend himself, Warren Buffett. His firm, Berkshire Hathaway, managed about 20%. That's genius level. And then there's Medallion, at 66%. They weren't just beating the market, they weren't even in the same league. It was a completely different game.
So you have to be asking, how did they do it? You'd assume they had a crystal ball, right? That they could just perfectly predict the future. But the truth is, actually way more interesting. According to someone who worked there, their trading models were only right about 50.75% of the time. Think about that. That is barely better than a coin flip. The secret wasn't making huge, brilliant bets. It was having a tiny statistical edge and then executing on it millions of times, perfectly, with zero human emotion involved.
And this brings us to the real puzzle we're going to solve today. What kind of person, what kind of thinker, can look at the complete chaos of the financial markets and find a hidden pattern that no one else sees? A key to unlock the whole thing? Well, the answer doesn't start on Wall Street. It starts in the quiet, abstract world of pure geometry.
Right, so to understand how Simons cracked the market, we have to rewind, way back. We have to go back to his first career. Before he was a billionaire, Jim Simons was one of the great geometers of his generation, and he was fascinated by problems that had absolutely nothing to do with money, but everything to do with finding hidden patterns.
And this right here is his masterpiece. It's called the Chern-Simons invariant. Now don't worry, you don't need a PhD in math to get the big idea. Just think of it like this. Imagine you have some crazy, complex, tangled-up shape. You can twist it, bend it, stretch it, all you want. This invariant is like a magic formula that gives you a number, a core property of that shape that literally never changes, no matter what you do to it. It's a way to find a pure, reliable signal in a world of visual noise.
And the way he discovered it is just a perfect story of scientific breakthrough. He wasn't even looking for it. He was working on a totally separate problem, and he had this annoying piece of math in his equations that he just could not get rid of. He tried everything to make it go away. And then he had that light bulb moment. What if the point wasn't to get rid of it? What if the point was that it was always there, that it was a constant? He realized the thing he thought was the problem was actually the answer. And this wasn't just some obscure little math trick. The Chern-Simons theory became a huge deal in physics. We're talking quantum field theory, string theory, the really big fundamental stuff. This quote says it all. Physicists cite his work, on average, 4 times a day. So think about what that means. Simons had created a master key, a powerful new way to find hidden, unchanging patterns in really complex systems. The only question was, where else could he use it?
Well, he first put this new way of thinking to the test, not in the financial markets, but in the world of national security and code breaking.
I mean, just look at this career path. It is anything but typical. He gets a PhD in math, then boom, he's a top-secret code breaker for the NSA during the Cold War. Then he leaves all that, goes back to a university, and builds a world-class math department. And only then does he start his investment firm. But you can see the thread connecting it all, right? First, he's finding hidden patterns in shapes. Then he's finding hidden patterns in secret messages. It was all just training for his ultimate target, the market.
And this is where he completely flipped the script on investing. Before Simons, Wall Street was all about stories, gut feelings, trying to predict what the economy was going to do. Simons came in and approached it like a cryptographer. He said, the stories are irrelevant. All of that is just noise. What mattered were the tiny, hard-to-find, non-random patterns hiding in the raw data. He was looking for the market's version of a Chern-Simons invariant.
Okay, so he's got the key, this mathematical way of seeing patterns, and he has his target, the market. But how do you actually build a whole company around that idea? Well, it all came down to a few core principles.
The absolute #1 foundational rule at Renaissance was this: get the humans out of the decision-making loop. Emotions like fear and greed, personal biases, gut feelings. To Simons, all of that was just noise that obscured the signal. The entire goal was to build automated models that traded purely on statistical evidence, no matter how weird or counterintuitive the trades might have looked.
And he ran his company by these simple but really powerful rules. 1. Do something new. Don't follow the herd. 2. Hire the smartest people you can find, but not from finance. He hired physicists, mathematicians, astronomers. 3. Be guided by beauty, which for a mathematician means finding the most simple, elegant model that explains the data. 4. Don't quit. Finding these signals is incredibly hard work. And 5. Hope for good luck, because even a genius needs a little of that.
This quote just perfectly captures the culture of the firm. He's basically saying, I know fame is a consequence of success, but man, I wish I could just have this success without anyone knowing about it. And that's because their mathematical models, their key, was their most valuable secret. Any leak could let a competitor figure out what they were doing. So they were intensely private.
So after he amassed one of the largest fortunes on the planet, this is where the story really comes full circle. Simon started to reinvest his wealth, not into more assets, but back into the very source of his original success.
He and his wife, Marilyn, started 2 major organizations. The Simons Foundation pours hundreds of millions into fundamental research in math and the basic sciences, exactly the kind of abstract, curiosity-driven work that led to his own breakthroughs. And then there's Math for America, which is focused on supporting great STEM teachers because he knew that's where the next generation of problem solvers comes from.
So you see, his philanthropy wasn't just about giving back in a general way. It was a really strategic investment in what you could call the source code of human progress. He knew, probably better than anyone, that the next world-changing idea probably won't come from trying to solve a specific business problem. It'll come from some brilliant person asking deep, fundamental questions, just like he once did.
And that's really the powerful idea that Jim Simons' story leaves us with. He looked at finance and saw it not as an economics problem, but as a math problem. And it makes you wonder, what other huge, messy, chaotic systems, from climate change to medicine to social dynamics, are just waiting for someone to come along, ignore all the noise, and find their own hidden, unchanging key?